Continue.
I've never been to
Sunday, and we are getting to the end. I am sure you're just as bummed as we are that we can't be there physically in person. So instead, we're doing a recording with my good friend, Sightless Combat, right here. And I'm very excited. So my name's Spy Shadow.
This has been a while in coming. This has been a while in terms of getting this to happen, but I'm glad it finally has.
Yes. So my name's Spy Shadow. I'm a positive, inclusive streamer over on the Mixer platform. We're so thankful for Twitch to be able to stream MomoCon for us today. And we are going to be available in chat. Wait, yes, we did have to pre-record because of the time difference. So because of that, it's actually going to be beneficial because we might be able to be in chat and actually talk to you guys there. All right, well, let's get into this. So this is merch, methods, and open-mindedness, the importance of accessibility as a gamer without sight. So with that, we've already introduced ourselves. Tell me a little bit about yourself, Combat.
Yeah, so I am Sightless Combat. I'm an accessibility consultant and, as you can tell by the title, a gamer without sight. Now, if you're wondering what a gamer without sight actually is, you're probably thinking, well, you're blind, aren't you? And the answer is technically, yes, you're correct. But I prefer the term gamer without sight and use it specifically because legal blindness, which is often just shortened to being blind, can and often does include usable and or residual vision, which I've never had. So if you were to ask me, how much can you see, really, I would say absolutely nothing. Not that I would say absolutely nothing, but I would say that I can see absolutely nothing. So yeah, in terms of what I do as an accessibility consultant, I write reviews for my website, and I will list that at the end. I will tell you where you can find me at the end of all of this. So I write reviews for my website. I stream to Mixer, much like Spy Shadow here, and I stream on both my own channel and the Xbox Ambassadors channel because I became an Xbox Ambassadors play host, which is an amazing opportunity to show off accessibility and my perspective on gaming and get other people involved as well, which we will come on to a little later. But I also go to game studios, do presentations, do talks, do talks at conferences. So like the Game Accessibility Conference, I've been to E3 a few times, so I go to events. I go, as I said, I've been all over the world to various studios and events and things. But yeah, so I play video games, I stream video games, I record content for YouTube as well. And in a roundabout way, that's a long form introduction to myself. And the reviews aren't just limited to to the games. They also encompass products and so game related products as well. So consoles, headsets, and hardware and software and capture cards and all kinds of interesting things. Yeah, so that's me.
And all the merch, which we'll get into later.
Oh yeah, and the merch side of things, which we will cover as part of this panel.
That's great. Well, it's so great that we are getting more into the world of focusing on accessibility and for everybody and inclusivity, and that's what we both have a passion about. So I'm very excited to get into kind of more on how you guys at home could be a part of that as well as developers and other people that are watching this. So
yeah, I mean, gaming is for everyone, or rather, it should be.
Yeah, exactly. It should be, right? That's good. There's the key word.
When everybody plays, we all win, as the Microsoft Super Bowl ad has often been quoted as saying.
So speaking of that, then, how did you get into gaming then, with this whole wall that we're going to be talking about with accessibility and everything?
So I got into gaming many, many years ago. Actually, through the first thing I got, the irony being, getting into video games actually didn't come from a video game. The first thing that got me into video games was actually an audio-only game, which is a thing that they still exist. They're not necessarily as common. Arguably, they're common now, but they're not as necessarily common as they once were. They're not as innovative as they once were in certain cases. But this game was in the early 2000s. This was Grizzly Gulch Western Extravaganza, so a very basic 4 or 5 key adventure game where you go around an old west town, the eponymous Grizzly Gulch, and you essentially you do missions for the marshal. You meet a cast of rather cheesy cliche characters. This game is kind of cliche cliche central city, really. And you sort of go around, you get into gambling, gunfights, and bribery. All great things to learn from a very young age.
Sounds like a typical game that we all played.
Not really. But I know what you mean. The key thing
the
is
cheesiness.
yeah, in that respect, yeah. I'm just thinking of like Secret of Monkey Island or
Yep, exactly.
what was it? Mad Dog McCree? Was it Mad Dog McCree?
Yep.
Oh, or whatever. Yeah, that game that I'm thinking of that I think is Mad Dog McCree. But basically, these are audio-only titles. There's a title called Shades of Doom, which is quite relatively well liked in audio gaming circles. And that's basically, that was more complex. That was like 360 degrees of movement. It wasn't 3D. You could still only walk forward, backwards, left, and right, but you could turn in a full circle and shoot things behind you and in front of you and all of that kind of stuff. That was pretty complex for the time, and it still holds up pretty well, as does Grizzly Gulch, actually. But then I got a PlayStation 1 and started getting into all of that with games like Tekken 3, Street Fighter EX Plus Alpha, basically all the fighting games. But then, as time went on, I gradually tried to, actually jump forward about, jump forward several years until about 5 years ago when I actually got an Xbox One. And that was where my sort of consultancy stuff really started as well, my journey to where I am now, because I started playing Killer Instinct, and that's a game I'm pretty much well known for now. Oh, it's an amazing game. The sound design, the audio details, and I've beaten sighted players. I got to killer rank, which is the highest tier in multiplayer.
Hey,
other than having
congratulations.
Oh, thank you. That was a few years ago though, when I was playing at Soliday, but I got there twice. I even beat Ken Lobb. For those of you who know Ken Lobb from Rare, from his days working on things like GoldenEye, I fought him on 2 separate occasions and won both times. The second time I even won his controller off him, but that's a whole other story.
We'll make sure we hold that over top of him on that one. But then I've moved into other genres. So I've moved into playing Halo. I've beaten all of the mainline shooter branch Halo games via co-op, which has been a very interesting thing. I played Halo 5 Guardians as my first Halo, which a lot of people would have a go at me for that, but at the time, it was because a friend I played Killer Instinct with said, "If you buy Halo 5 Guardians, I'll play it with you." And I was like, "Yeah, it's
really?
a good game." I mean,
and I played it through. Really enjoyed it. But then I played through all of the other ones. So CE 2, 3, ODST, 4, Reach. I think in that order. And really looking forward to Halo Infinite. That's going to be a really cool thing.
Very excited for Halo Infinite. I think one of the most exciting things is that when I got to talk more with Combat, I realized he was such a Halo person. I'm like, I'm a Halo person too. This is great. Like, we get so much to talk about.
In fact, I'm so much of a Halo person. We'll come to our first piece of merch here. Our first piece of merch being the Master Chief Cable Guy. Apologies that you can't see my face. There we go. So now you should be able to see me and the thing.
He's beautiful.
He is really, really cool. The great thing about this is it's so detailed. If I just turn him around, you can see. I've had to get used to actually using a camera when I stream for showing these kinds of things, but it's really cool to be able to do. So the detailling is really good. So like the armor here.
Yeah, the backpack looks so detailed.
Sort of backpack thing. It looks like it should have things clipped onto it, which is an interesting point. The sort of shoulder pads, like protection pad things.
Whatever Master Chief actually has.
Those... These are. And then of course the reason this looks different is because here is actually where a phone or a controller goes.
Oh, it's a controller stand, which are very popular these days.
If I reach a little out of shot, 1 second. If I bring in my Gears of War 4 controller here, wrong franchise, I know, but we'll run with it.
We'll run with that. 2 games, good together.
There we go.
Perfect.
So that's how that's meant to look.
Wow.
So it's a really cool thing because it gives me an idea of what the characters are actually like in the game. Let me just put that down.
Oh, that's great. So that will probably come later with our talk on merch. Very good.
Well, no, for instance, if you just said Master Chief wears a helmet as part of his armor, you wouldn't think it had this like line in the middle at the top, or the sort of visor detail here, where it kind of looks like a kind of looks like he's trying to make a skull face go either side of where his face is.
What people can actually pick up if they just look at him, but for you, that's like that detail is like, that's so cool, and you can catch that by the merch.
And
Wow.
because that figure's quite a sizable one, but it's really well detailed, and it has a practical use, which is even better. Well, practical use, you can put your controller on it. I mean, and then at least you know where it is because Chief's looking after it, so
yes, of course.
You know where it's
not going anywhere.
No. I just imagine on like it's like at the end of Halo 2, instead of saying finishing this fight, it's like keeping this controller safe.
You must keep this controller safe.
Yeah,
great.
but we'll come on to a couple of other examples of detail and characters and things later on probably. But yeah, so I got into gaming through the PlayStation 1 in terms of console games, and then I've gone all the way through to the Xbox One, and now slightly with PC gaming as well, with things like Gears Tactics, doing menu narration and having sighted assistance with all of that. That's partly how I play games as well. I use share controller, so when I stream, I get the assistance of other players and other regulars via share controller. So they are controlling my game over the internet whilst I have simultaneous control as well. It's like Copilot, if you've ever heard of that.
Copilot, yeah, that sounds like a fun thing to do.
Copilot's great. It's basically that, but local only, so you can do it with people in the same room.
Gotcha.
And I beat Jedi Fallen Order with that, which was really good fun. That was a great... I should have brought my my bobbleheads, my Jedi Fallen Order bobbleheads with me. But yeah, anyway.
If you can't tell, he has a lot of great merch, and we've talked about it. I've seen pictures of it, and if you look at his socials later on, you'll see them all in the background. You can start catching like each one of them and going, "Oh, look at that!" So you'll make sure you do that.
It's a shame I couldn't bring. There's a couple of pieces I would love to have shown off as part of this panel, like the gold lancer I got as part of Gears of War 4. And having a replica like that is key, because it's one thing to hear the Lancer in game, even in Gears 4. It gives you a sense of the gun itself and the whole chainsaw thing. But without actually being able to see it, you have no impression of how it works. So being able to hold a full-size 1-to-1 Lancer replica, and if you've never held one, they are actually heavier than they look.
I'm sure.
And coming from me, that probably doesn't mean much, but you know what I'm getting at. So once you hold it up and you're like, wow, this is heavy. So it's a really great way of being able to understand the world and the universe and everything. But again, we will probably come on to parts of that later.
We will. So the cool thing is that as he got into gaming combat, he kept pushing the envelope, and we're going to talk more about how that envelope is getting pushed farther and farther as we go on, and even to today and what he's been doing the last week, and everything like that, and all for the Global Accessibility Awareness Day. We'll be talking a little bit about that and just the excitement that's coming. The other thing to realize is that these games are top games that he's playing. The Halo is the most famous franchise ever, almost, I feel like, on Xbox. People might actually end up murdering me for that, but that's my preference, biasness. And Gears of War, and he's mentioned several other games that are these large games that we all play that he has been able to experience as a gamer without sight. So that's amazing. So let's see, how do you actually play these games then? Let's talk through that.
So I've kind of covered parts of it, but essentially it's audio. It's a combination of several things, and it can change on a game-by-game basis, really. But it's audio cues and in-game accessibility features. So things like Gears 5's menu narration. If you've ever turned your Xbox on and accidentally pressed the wrong buttons and thought your console was possessed,
start talking back to you. Wait, who's this?
That's an accessibility feature called Narrator, and Gears 5 and Gears 5, Sea of Thieves, Crackdown 3, Forza Horizon 4, and Halo: The Master Chief Collection. And hopefully soon Minecraft Dungeons as well when it comes to Xbox One in a couple of days as of the time of this of this recording, in a few days. All those games have menu narration to varying degrees. So if you go up and down, you'll hear like start game, campaign, horde, escape, versus options, and then you'll go into options and you'll be like target lock, beginner only, use your allow for automatic targeting of enemies or things like that. So I'll be able to set the game up entirely like that. if the narration and accessibility is good enough. But audio cues, things like fabricator ping in Gears of War 4. So if you've never played Horde, you pick up this box called the fabricator to start a match. And if you've got no sight, you have no idea where that box is. Fabricator ping is kind of the answer to that in a sense, even though it's not perfect.
Right.
But not every. I don't think any accessibility feature ever is perfect, necessarily. But fabricator ping, you press and hold a button down, and it will actually, ping the location and sort of make a pinging noise. So as you move towards it, it will vary based on the pitch of it, as to how close you are, the speed of it, as to how close you are, and the direction of it as well. So you can turn to face it and all of that. Though, of course, the geometry of the map does, have its own problems as well.
Right? Yes, and the whole ups and downs and little things. I mean, even everybody gets hooked on the little glitches and corners of the map sometimes. So, it's annoying.
Yeah. So there's audio cues and accessibility features, sighted assistance where needed, which is essentially what it says on the proverbial tin, whereby if I need assistance to get past a level of, say, Jedi Fallen Order, to actually traverse anywhere, to know what I'm doing, any of that.
Okay.
I will get sight assistance via Copilot or share controller, or even when I've played PS4 games, so Final Fantasy VII, God of War, what was the other one? Uncharted 4, which was an amazing game to do. That was a lot of fun. And Uncharted 1 as well. I went back and played the first one. I'm going to play the other two as well, the intervening two between that.
Great.
That's the plan anyway. But I have to use a little box called the Titan 2, which is essentially Copilot in a box. So you plug two controllers into the front of it. A USB lead comes out the back. You plug that into your console or your PC even, because I've been playing Gears Tactics with it as well. Yeah. And you then both have control of it. So a sighted player can move your cursor around. They can, highlight whatever they need to highlight. They can aim for you. They can move for you. Any of that stuff that I can't do myself yet. That's the key word, yet.
Yes,
I think.
Yes, I think that's the key we're going to get to. So real quick, I just got to ask though, who's your number one co-pilot? Are you going to get in trouble if
I am not going to say that because.
Oh, okay, you're getting in trouble with people.
Partly because it doesn't matter. That's the thing.
That's true. That's
you can
cool.
play. I've played. I've played Jedi Fallen Order with a few different people, both through share controller and co-pilot, and all those times it's been an interesting, an entertaining, and enjoyable experience. Audio cues, sighted assistance, and essentially using things like OCR, so optical character recognition. So that's a piece of software. You can get it on phones, you can get it on PCs, you can get it on all sorts of things. But it's essentially a process by which you extract text from an image. So say it's a screenshot or a label on a can of food or a piece of merch, such as the next thing I'm going to quickly bring in.
Okay.
Show off. Minecraft plushie.
It's a plushie, zombie plushie.
Specifically, baby zombie.
Baby.
And because if you look here, that's a label that I can't read.
Right.
Because of my lack of sight. But I'd scan that with my phone, and that would basically use OCR to do that. The great thing about these is, again, detail, and it really sort of holds the aesthetic. So, the blocky head, the kind of interesting looking eyes, sort of cross-shaped eyes. The even the arms that are... Yeah, I've heard of going cross-eyed, but this is just taking it to new extremes.
Exactly.
And then these kind of interesting lines that sort of join everything together. That that they are seams, but they look like they're deliberately part of the detailing.
They are,
rather than anything else. And then, of course, I might as well bring the other Minecraft one in while we're on the subject.
Minecraft collection.
Well, kind of. You're not wrong. If I flip him round, there we go. This is like just, it's so different because a lot of the merch I own is quite plasticky. That's fine. Plastic merch is great, but to have like a sort of soft, like family-friendly, sort of cute piece of merch is great. And this is a ghast for those of you who can't see it, or a ghast, depending on how you want to pronounce it. And it just basically, it's kind of a block on legs. Is the way I think of it in my head.
I love that.
Well, it is, because if you look, you got all the various legs or appendages, I suppose. You can't quite tell whether they're legs, whether they're not.
What they are.
And then the head, the sort of head on top with the eyes and what look like ears, possibly, or like antennae type things on the top. And all of this detail is just because, it's all textured and it's all there. And, all these things on the sides that we don't quite know what they are. And, that's brilliant to be able to use that. But back to OCR as well. Let me just put that down out of shot. Back to OCR. OCR is crucial because when a game doesn't have narrative menus, for instance, if I take a screenshot of that game with the process that I'm used to using on Windows 10, I can actually, sometimes I can read the menus, sometimes I can't. So, if a game doesn't have the narrative menus and I can read the menus via OCR, that's all well and good. So Killer Instinct, for instance, if you get it in the right conditions, you can get it to read pretty well. With Halo 5, however, you don't have any such luck because of the way the menu, I think the way the menu physically looks. So like all the animated backgrounds and things don't necessarily help it. But I've done presentations on that before as well, or not specifically just that, but I've covered that in previous talks. I've done it at events and things, and that always interests people, just how that actually ends up sort of affecting it in terms of, how well I can read the menus and stuff.
Very interesting.
Yeah, so there are other things that come into it as well, but mostly just audio cues, sighted assistance, and other workarounds that I managed to figure out as well. So memorization too. So and dedicating time to a game, that was the other one. So Gears 4, I had to memorize a lot of the menus because there was no narration at all, and using OCR I could do that to a point. And with Killer Instinct as well, I've had to memorize the character select screen over a few iterations because it changed a few times while I was playing it. So that was interesting.
Cool. Oh, wow. Oh, the changes. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, so we've mentioned a lot of games. So I have to tell you then, what is your favorite game at the moment?
Ooh, yeah. So I remember I remember pre-planning this question with you, and I was just like, I can't say what is your favorite game because picking favorites, it changes so much.
So it's so much by day, right?
Well, by less even sometimes. By like, you play a game 1 minute, you think it's going to be amazing. Right. You run into an issue, and it's like, oh, this is not my favorite game. But equally, you play a game and you realize how playable it is, and you're like, oh my god, this is great. This is great. Much like Minecraft Dungeons beta, which I am so excited for.
There we go. That's coming out soon.
I got to play it on PC. I got access to the closed beta, and my mind was blown in the best possible way by the amount of accessibility that came in since I played it at Gamescom last year.
That's awesome.
I actually got to play alongside one of the executive producers, I think he is. So I played that at Gamescom and remembered all the controls because I'd been able to play it previously behind closed doors as part of a studio visit of sorts that I got to undertake while I was at the Gaming and Disability Bootcamp for Microsoft. So that's one of the perks of my job, I suppose.
It is.
Being able to do that and give developers direct feedback has been amazing. To be able to say, this works, this doesn't. These menus are absolutely amazing. I can do all of these things. I can change my inventory around. I can get all my enchantments working. Why doesn't this thing read? I really wish it would.
Right.
All kinds of stuff. So, so Minecraft Dungeons, I've been playing a lot of Gears 5 as well, of course, because that's currently the most accessible shooter I've found anyway.
Good job, Gears.
Good job, Gears. Good job, Coalition as well, for putting all the effort in. And been playing Killer Instinct on stream, been playing, occasionally playing Mortal Kombat 11 on stream as well. I'm not as good at that as I would like to be, but that's an interesting game to do. Been playing Halo 5 Guardians as well.
That's awesome. Well, I think that it's amazing that you and developers have an open forum, especially when we have games like Minecraft Dungeons coming out where you're able to talk to them ahead of time. And so, guys, it's very exciting. You can go check out. Obviously, he will be plugging his YouTube and everything later, but there's a really awesome Minecraft Dungeon YouTube beta recording that he has up right now. So just a little tease in that direction. Let's see. So you said you so you also stream games. So let's go ahead and take a little bit of a pivot. I'm a streamer, so this is more near and dear to my heart. It's not only just gaming, but you also stream games. So what's the reason behind streaming it? And amongst other things, then how do you like deal with, I mean, I'm a normal person and I almost can't keep up sometimes with playing a game and playing with chat and doing sound cues and all this other stuff. And so the fact that you do that and keep up with chat, and I mean, definitely interactive, because I've seen it.
I did it well. I never said I did it well.
You've done it amazing. I've been watching your some of your VODs and your broadcasts, and I'm like, he is keeping up with chat, and he's doing an amazing job. And so let's talk about that.
That's very kind of you to say so. But yeah, by the way, I just wanted to say there's no such thing necessarily as normal now, is there, really, with everything being as it is?
No, not at all.
No, but also I will just quickly take the time to say, hope everybody is staying safe and well while you're watching this. Hopefully you're all keeping yourselves busy and entertained, distracted, etc., as need be. But in terms of streaming, that's what's kept me distracted and kind of kept me in a sense of routine. It's been brilliant to know that 2 or 3 days a week I'm here where I am now streaming games, and it's not just that's one of the reasons I do it in a way, just because I have the ability to do so. And but that's sort of half the reason. The other half is the simple fact that I enjoy showing people how I play games. So with Gears 5, I enjoy showing people I can shoot through walls with Faz's Ultimate, because that's a legitimate thing you can do. Hit targets that are about 200 kilometers away. It's like, sometimes I will see a target in the very far distance. There will be audio for it. I should clarify. When I say see, it is not necessarily seeing in the traditional sense, as it were. In case that wasn't already clear, I thought I'd just make sure that people understood that.
Yes.
There are people who are can be slightly on edge about it, but I'm not one of those people, which is why in videos and things I will make jokes about that a fair amount of the time.
Great attitude. He has a great attitude.
That's very kind of you again. But I stream, to partly because I can, partly because I enjoy doing it, to show my perspective, but partly to almost impart my knowledge. So when Share Controller has issues, we show that when I have issues with keeping up with chat for whatever reason, or managing anything, I try and show that. With Minecraft Dungeons, we had a couple of interesting technical hurdles with OBS to try and get it to record and show itself properly, but we figured that out. So all of that stuff is great for me to learn and great for other people to see. I think that even if you can't see it, it's good to be able to stream. And in terms of how I keep up with chat, though, I actually have, off to my left here, I have a little sound card that I run all of my stream stuff through. So I have, in essence, 2 sets of audio. So I have the loop that the stream hears, and I have the loop that I hear, which includes everything that the stream hears and a few other things as well. So whenever you come onto my stream, unless it needs to be heard, you will not hear the screen reader that I use, and the screen reader is a piece of software that actually, essentially, when it can read it and when things are labeled correctly, it will turn on-screen text and other controls and elements and things, again, when they're labeled correctly, into synthesized speech. So I will hear a voice talking, a sort of robotic voice talking to me. And so if you sometimes hear that on stream, you will know what it is. You will be aware of that, hopefully. But the stream never really needs to hear that, unless, of course, I'm playing a game like Minecraft Dungeons or Gears 5 or any of those other games that has menu narration in the first place, where it will either come through as part of the game, or I can deliberately redirect it so that everybody knows what I'm hearing in the first place. So, and being able to keep up with chat is also facilitated via a bot I have as well. So by Firebot, if you're wondering. Shout out to the great team at Team Crowbar, who are doing a fantastic job. Even updating a couple of accessibility things as recently as a couple of small updates ago to resolve an issue I was having with one of the important menus that you need to use for the logins, for management of logins and profiles and things. So they updated that after I basically said, can you sort this out? I'm having issues using it. So it's great to see a responsive dev team once again doing that. But I have all little sound cues set up, all little chat commands and things. So I've got one for my YouTube channel. I've got one for my my reviews page. I've got one for shout outs. I've got one for I've even got a new one for my latest series as well that we're currently doing, which is
Ooh.
Wolfenstein: The Old Blood. I set this up the other day. This is a death counter.
Death counter.
Yep, I saw it on a stream from a great individual, a great accessibility advocate consultant, and now, if memory serves, employee Ubisoft for accessibility, Cherry Ray, and Cherry. They have a great thing where they have actually used death counters before, if memory serves, and I was kind of motivated by that. I was like, given this is a new series, I'll stick a death counter in.
I've been thinking about doing that. Maybe I should. I don't know. It might be embarrassing. But...
no. It could be. At least you'll have a number to look back on, and it'll be like, like at the end of the stream, at the end of the series, you're like, in total, we died 367 times.
Right.
So
I died 400 the last time I streamed, so we're doing better.
So we're doing better on a second playthrough. Yeah, exactly. You're not wrong. You're pretty correct on that. But that was a great thing to do. It's only partially working as of the time of recording. I'm still trying to iron out the proverbial creases, but it's definitely a cool thing. It's been really cool to be able to do, to sort of read the chat and everything. It's a good challenge because I will be listening to the game. I'll be listening to the little chat audio cues that come in, and then having to read the chat and play the game and do that. So that's why sometimes you'll see me wait for like downtime as well. So we'll do a big, massive firefight. Then I'll look at the chat and I'll be like, oh, you said this earlier. I see what you meant. Fine. So, it's all about kind of knowing when you can read the chat as well as if you can read it in the first place, if it's going massively quickly. All
right. Well, speaking of content, then I did want to see, I saw some recent content from you, and so I'm going to pair this up to kind of a double question, but you were playing some Halo content for the Ambassadors channel, which was, and you were playing a Medusa map. And so I kind of want you to talk
session, really. It was a Medusa session.
Like a session, Medusa session. So I want you to talk a little bit about that and how that was geared toward Global Accessibility Awareness Day. That was kind of what you were focused on, and how important this was this last week. I thought it was amazing.
Oh, actually, I'm going to pull you up on one tiny word here because I know we can. I want to try and get these in. You said geared up on things. Now, what if I told you that as part of my collection, I have Gears of War pop vinyls?
Oh yes, pop vinyls. Let's show some pop vinyls.
We have, first of all.
These things are amazing. I'm so addicted.
There we go. Boom.
Boom. I love it.
Sorry. I should say boom. There we go.
Yes.
Try and drop your voice about 2 octaves. So this one's great because this is humanoid, but it's not human, which is really quite cool. So you can, the detailing here is absolutely great as well, again, because even though it's a smaller form factor, if I just put my hand next to it for scale, like that, you should be able to see the top of his head. There we go. You can look up. Oh, that's it. Managed to balance him. There we go.
Balance him.
So you can see, the non-human detailing. So the eyes look unusual, to say the least.
Yes, they do.
The feet are sort of massive and, for lack of a better word, clumpy, really. Sort of big, heavy feet going on. And then the trademark, well, it looks like a boom shot. It probably is. It's big, square rocket launcher deal going on. And, that's a really cool thing to be able to see. But we also have, so it's great to be able to get detail on the enemies. Now, we also have, if I can just gently...
We want the heroes.
That's all right. You're half right, actually. Hey, Blondie.
Yay, look at him.
That's why I was saying you're half right, because not necessarily everybody in Delta likes him.
That's right.
Well, no, he is definitely a hero, though, because he's done several technological amazing things. So the great thing about Baird here is, he's a human figure, so you can tell the difference between the two. The feet are different even. That's a really good detail. Even in general, even though he's got the armor on, the feet are different, and the hair's good. The hair's actually really good. It's got this kind of interesting look to it. Yeah. Even though you can't see the color, it's actually really key. Now, the reason I know it's Baird is because if you look closely, you'll actually see, if I pull it back, you might be able to see it better. You can actually see the goggles as well.
Goggles are key, yes.
And the great thing is you can see the eyes here, and actually the rest of the face as well, which is good. Well, it's not much of a face, but it's a face, as in it's just eyes and a nose, really. in terms of what you can physically feel. And then you see the goggles up above it. And cool detail as well, they even go right into his hair. If you look closely at the side,
right, it's right up there. Okay.
You can see, so it goes round here and actually through the hair. Rather than sort of just merging into the hair, like at the side here, they've actually taken the time to put that in. And tiny details like that are really good, just to get a real sense of the characters. But, actually, I forgot to show you. There we go. Mini Lancer. There you go.
There's this mini Lancer, yeah.
Even with the teeth as well, which I didn't expect when I first got one of these. I wasn't quite sure how quote-unquote kid-friendly or family-friendly they'd be. I wasn't sure whether they'd just have like a curve, like just a flat curve there.
Yeah.
But they do have each of the teeth there. So even if you didn't manage to get a replica Lancer, you could definitely get an impression of the gun from that.
That's awesome.
From one shooter franchise to another, though, we will come back round to what you said. I thought I'd show those though, because you did say geared up, and I was like, why not?
I threw that up there for you. That's why I did it. No, okay.
He didn't even know I had those in the back. He couldn't even see those in the shot. Then again, neither could I. But
All right.
Yeah, but in terms of Medusa, so Medusa is a Halo 5 Guardians map and mode set created by myself and numerous co-forgers and playtesters, cited co-forgers and playtesters, including Koeki22, Spartan Blood 1, Activate Halo, Bob is here, and so many others that, a list so long that
great
an amazing bunch of people. This was done about 2 or 3 years ago. And essentially it's designed to be completely played without sight, so purely based on audio. And the only reason me and the co-forgers are as good at it as we are when we have our moments is because we play tested it so much. We spent hours and hours play testing it. And the idea being, it's essentially, it's a shame I don't have a drawing here that I could show you, or a rough image of it or anything. Essentially it's a square. Actually, it might be better if I describe it. It's a big square of 4 corridors that all go around the side of a map. Essentially, they make up the 4 edges of the map. And then in the middle of each long corridor, there is a corridor that interconnects into the middle. So it goes down, left, or right, or up into the middle of the map. So it's like a big square with a sort of cross shape in it, like an even cross shape. And the idea being you can go and run around, because all the interconnecting corridors are made of glass, and the rest of it is like standard material. I'm not sure whether it's concrete or not, or metal. I can't remember what we put it out of in the end. I think it's metal. But the point being, once you know how to run the map, so you know what the footsteps sound like and everything.
Yes.
That's what I mean by running the map. Once you know what all the sound cues mean, so you know where your bottom left corner of the map is versus your top right, because the audio cues in those corners are different. That's the key thing as well. And there's a cue at the middle of the map as well. And there's, once you learn all of that, you can start playing effectively, arguably. It takes a while to learn, and it's not easy at all. You have double boost. You're not allowed to use the right stick. That's one of the key rules.
Okay.
Because otherwise, other than, of course, not looking at all. So regardless of how much vision you have, you're not looking in the slightest. So, even I don't have a blindfold on when I play, but I know gamers without sight who have put blindfolds on just to be sure of it,
Completely right. Yeah, completely immersed. And I think the cool thing is that in this video you were playing with people that did have sight, and they were able to kind of play with you and put that blindfold on and have an amazing time. There was a lot of laughs, and
definitely
it was great to see that interaction happening. And I think the most amazing thing is, like, when you're playing with sight, you don't think about like different things like audio cues. So
because originally it was just gravity hammers and energy swords.
Okay, good way to start.
And then we figured out that the sword was broken. Very, very broken. It's fun. So we then switched it out to assault rifles and gravity hammers, which is like, after a bunch of iterations and testing and things. And then we eventually introduced additional gunplay into it. So we introduced the battle rifle at top left and the DMR at top right. So it's not viewed as a map it's not viewed as a flat surface. The reason we say top and bottom, left and right, is because we essentially visualize it as like a window or a picture frame.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
That kind of thing. So it's sort of it's a a vertical thing rather than a horizontal thing. Even though, of course, you're moving horizontally, it's easier for some people to visualize it. Oh, and I forgot to mention the shotgun. That's mid.
I had to ask you about the shotgun because I was looking at you guys pass by it every time, and I was like, "What is the shotgun doing in the middle there?"
So all of the other guns, so the gravity hammer doesn't have it, but all of the other guns have what's called a threat marker attachment. So in game, you can assign this thing where when a player walks past you, walks in front of your line of sight, it will make a sort of blip, like a blip noise, and you'll hear that, and you can take a shot from there.
Yeah.
You won't always hit it. Most of the time, you probably won't. But it's good to have there just in case. It's there if you need it,
you can hear
or if you want to use it. Most of the time, I just kind of fire into the sort of space in front of me.
Yep.
And sort of not on a pattern, but I'll be using my instincts, what I can hear from the audio around me as well. But so all the other guns, so the DMR, the battle rifle, the assault rifle, have threat markers. The shotgun is the only gun that doesn't. That's because it is a genuine one-hit kill.
Right.
So you wouldn't want to have people are so quick at times that if you did have a threat marker on the shotgun, it would probably move it into really broken territory, possibly.
Yeah. I see that.
And we wanted to keep it as a challenge as well, partly because it's so rewarding. When you go up behind a player, they either don't see you or they've just come out of a firefight, and you just go, and you're like, yep, you just got disintegrated by my shotgun.
I'm funny.
Yeah,
or the collisions. The player collisions were funny too. I had to laugh with those because you think you hit a wall, right? Because you're just trying to get yourself spatially, where you are, and then you start moving around the wall because your guys are just like slowly like rubbing off, and you're like, oh, okay, like that's a person.
We're like sort of moving on to each other. Either that, or sometimes you'll hear a player, they'll be sort of standing relatively still, and then they'll like twitch. Pun intended, of course.
Yeah, pun intended. Oh,
yeah, and then they'll just twitch, and then they're like, "Oh, I see a player, right? Gravity hammer," and it's like, "How did that miss?" Because they'll have already moved or something.
Right.
But I think that one of the most interesting things about that was actually being able to commentate as well. I don't know if you got to that part in the highlight video. So
it was.
I can actually commentate Medusa matches, and I commentated a fellow gamer without sight as well, which is even more interesting because that match, the person in question actually got 14 kills as opposed to I think 7 they got before, so they're like double their kill count when I was commentating. So I don't know what that says about my commentary skills.
I think you pushed them to victory.
Maybe, but it wasn't victory quite because one of the community managers beat him by like 3.
Oh, okay. Just by 3.
Yeah, it was good performance. Medusa's a really interesting map to be able to show people because even though Halo 5 doesn't have the accessibility features of these newer games,
you were able to make them. Yeah, that's so cool.
Kind of like retrofitting, which is not the ideal way to do it, but it works. In certain rare situations, it can work really, really well. But yeah, so and Halo 5 is one of those things where there's so much involved with it. So the lore, the the cross media stuff, which we'll come on to in a second. So videos, comics, all of that. But to be able to actually experience any of it, because multiplayer is tough for anybody. Multiplayer is tough in any game, really, most of the time. Yeah. But in terms of that, you've got to consider that if you can't see, how are you going to even get into the menus for it? But with Medusa, once a sighted player sets it up and you will get an invite, then you're pretty much okay. You can all just keep going round and round in rotation for ages and just keep playing.
So that's awesome. Yeah, if you guys need to check that out, again, we'll be plugging his YouTube, but he has a recording of that based off of doing an Xbox Ambassador stream using the Global Accessibility Awareness Day. So we appreciate the fact it was awesome.
Global Accessibility Awareness Day.
Yeah.
That happened on the 21st of May this year. It's the third Thursday every year in May. And it's an amazing thing to see everybody coming together. So we saw Ubisoft, Square Enix,
they
West,
did a great job.
IDOS, Splash Damage as well. I was talking to the folks in Splash Damage about Gears Tactics. Shout out to those folks over there. and to everybody else as well. Who,
Right, a lot
who,
of streamers and gamers came out. I know Twitter was going crazy with that, and I
in the best
appreciate
possible
that
way,
in the best possible way.
And it's a great celebration of. It's primarily a web accessibility thing from reading the information on the site, but it's expanded way beyond that.
Of course,
it's not so much. It's not just web. It's like everything, gaming, politics, all of that, everything. Data sets for artificial intelligence, all kinds of interesting stuff came along and was there that day. But a key thing to remember as well, even though I was posting content a lot throughout that day, reposting a few things as well and retweeting content from other people, it's important to remember that accessibility isn't just a one-day thing.
Yes, please.
It needs to be considered every single day of the year on whatever project you're working on, because design for one, solve for many. If you're not including, you're excluding people. There's all these kind of mini sayings that I've just picked up over the years of doing my consultancy work. Nothing about us without us, and all of that. And of course, so everyone can game, the hashtag on Twitter, all of that. It's all part of promoting the positivity and inclusion of accessibility.
Exactly. And I think the key is that it being such a large thing, there is multiple facets that everybody needs to make sure they're looking at. You can't just look at one facet and say, okay, well, we're only looking for accessibility or inclusivity here. While that might be very comfortable for people to focus on, there's just a wider group of people out there across the world. You're going to meet different people and experience different experiences depending on who you're meeting. And the key is to keep that awareness on you at all times, to be always accessible to whoever it is, to be inclusive to whoever it is. And I think it's cool to see, again, like you said, the wide spectrum, that it went above and beyond just web accessibility and gaming accessibility. But hey, every day of the year, how are we becoming more accessible to other people and
if we're not, how can we be improved? How can we improve it?
How can we improve?
Because I've had conversations where people have said, "Oh, this is accessible for low vision or legally blind people," and I'm like, "But what about me? Can I use this?"
What about?
And they're like, "No."
And you're like, well, wait, then let's fix that. Right. Yeah, let's look to fix that.
I'm like, let's discuss that and see what we can sort out. And sometimes those conversations go really well. Other times they don't happen for whatever reason, or they just fizzle out, as it were. But it's great when a developer either reaches out to me, or I can reach out to a developer or somebody working on a project. That's what I'm going to say as well, because people who make comics, people who do books generally. And it's that's the other thing as well. Books are great. I've been reading Sea of Thieves, Athena's Fortune. That was a fantastic book to read. But then I went to look around and see if I could read the comics, and unfortunately, I couldn't read any of those. I looked on Comixology, I think is how you pronounce it. Not 100% sure, because screen readers are interesting when they pronounce things. But that page unfortunately doesn't have easy to OCR images or any text transcripts of anything.
Wow.
Audio description. There's so many videos on YouTube, game trailers and everything, where there's no clear explanation of what's going on. Sometimes you can have whole trailers with just music and no dialogue. They're rare, but they do exist.
Right.
And when those happen, when you have no idea what's going on, audio description is a key thing to look at there. If you don't know what audio description is, it's essentially a second track that overlays over your film, your TV show, your theatrical performance, your trying to think, just anything. It can overlay over most things, your adverts even.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, I've seen audio described adverts. They happen. They're available. It's amazing, but it's just a shame that not all of this is being put together into cohesive stuff. Alt text in images. If you don't know what alt text is, it's basically just a description. So instead of just having an image of, a Marcus Phoenix pop vinyl, for instance, in the alt text field on Twitter or wherever it is you're posting it that allows alt text, you would then put in the little description field, you would then put a Marcus Phoenix pop vinyl, or even greater detail. You can put. I've got a picture on. I did put up a picture at one stage of pretty much all of my Gears collection, or most of my Gears collection at the time, and I named all of the. I think I had like 13 or so pop vinyls at that point from Gears. I've now got pretty much the whole set, as far as I'm aware, of those ones. They're really cool. Must admit, having the whole set is really good for detail. Because if you're like, what does this character look like again? It's like, oh, like that. Okay, that makes sense. But it was good to be able to name all of the pop vinyls and just be like, these one, this one, this one, this one. And even though I couldn't describe all of them, if people were to say to me, what does this one look like? I could try and give a description. It wouldn't be accurate necessarily.
Yeah,
but it would be better than not being able to give a description at all. And that partly comes from, again, the books. So the Halo books, the Gears books, the Sea of Thieves book. Trying to think of other ones. I've definitely the God of War book as well. The novelization of God of War. I read that. That was pretty good. I quite enjoyed that. It was good to read after I'd finished the game as well. Very interesting. All of that being accessible to me, it just opens up so many doors for not just me, but anyone else. Going to whatever you do, anyone who's watching this, in terms of improving accessibility, you're not just going to impact the people who you think it's going to help. You're going to help other people as well. And that reaches far beyond probably what most would expect.
Yeah, that global reach. That's great. That's a great vision to have.
More like Halo reach, but
There you go, Halo reach. So we're almost done here. We're getting close to the end time. So I just wanted to, again, if you have any closing comments, just to game developers and other media. I mean, you kind of did it a little bit right there, but just a quick thing. I know we have many developers that will be watching this. We have many, up and coming developers, fans. I mean, you guys, honestly, you all impact this to a certain level. Streamers,
everyone
gamers,
has an impact.
everybody.
Even if you don't think you have an impact, writing one simple description for a trailer, even, and saying, these characters are in the trailer. I've had that before. I've asked on social media, what is going on in this? Who is in the latest Mortal Kombat 11 trailer or whatever? Because there's no, there might not be any description, might not be any information there on the page. It might just say pre-order the deluxe edition of this, that, and the other to get a pack of these, and it's like, I have no idea what that means. So you then say, what's going on here? Who's in this trailer? What does this actually say? And then somebody will respond back saying, oh, it's so-and-so, him, her, and these people. And it's like, okay, that's cool.
You. Yeah.
And, that's really useful. And then I can say, if, say, a friend then discusses it with me, I can be like, oh, did you hear? They're revealing him, her, that person, them, and those people. And they're like, no. So that's great. Being able to be a part of this, this conversation, this cultural phenomenon, really, that is video games.
Yes.
And that's partly why I created the Transcribing Games project. I'll give a quick plug for that. It's basically, you can find the videos on my YouTube channel as well as on my website. But essentially, it's adding audio description to video game footage. And but it goes deeper than that. That's in its simplest form. But it goes deeper than that. So it's text transcripts for cutscenes, for character descriptions, for weapons, items, levels, locations, vehicles, any of that. So we started doing it for God of War. That's been a really great project to work on. Shout out to everybody in the team, Jenna, and everyone else. Jenna is the audio describing voice of the God of War videos. If you go and watch those, cool. It's amazing to see how much you miss as well. If you go and watch one of those sequences and you don't look at it, you will probably realize how much you actually miss from it without being able to see.
Amazing.
So, all of that's why we started it, because to give people this extra information and to be able to participate in these great discussions.
Yes.
And and I think the other closing words as well is, if you I'm always open to discuss accessibility. I'm always open to consult with people, and no matter how small an impact you think you're having in terms of giving all this positive feedback, give feedback to developers when they're doing stuff right for accessibility. Give feedback to developers in a constructive way on both spectrums. Please be constructive and reasonable and friendly with the developers, because they will really appreciate you for it.
Yes.
But give constructive critique as to how they can improve their games in terms of accessibility, and you will. A lot of people will be thankful. Not just those you're thinking will be. Everybody else will as well, because if you enhance it for a small market of people, like say you enhanced it for 1% of people, it will impact the other 99 as well, because people will leave options on, people will use stuff, people will read stuff. So if you see a comic that's not accessible, get to work writing it down. If you want to write it down and transcribe it for people who can read it, like write the alt text out for the images in the comic itself and integrate it, do that, and talk to the people who write the comics about getting it published, with their permission and everything. If you see a trailer and you want to describe it, record it as a video, send it through to people, myself included, and we can disseminate that and get other people talking about it. If you want to write walkthroughs for games, if you think a game could be accessible but isn't, just because of a lack of audio cues, for instance, and you've seen that on people's streams like myself and other accessibility consultants, do that. Help people out where they need it with Share Controller, Copilot. If you're local to gamers with disabilities who need that assistance, gamers without sight who want that assistance after everything lifts, and of course observing all social distancing where you need to.
Please do.
Do all of that, and just interact in streams and ask those questions about how it all works, any of that. Because as I've said before, if I've said it before, I'll be saying it 100 times. When everybody plays, we all win, and accessibility is for everyone.
It is for everyone. So let's get where you are, where people can find you on social and streaming and everything like that, because I'm sure people have more questions. They want to see more of this amazing content. So let's hear.
So you can find me on Twitter. You can find me on pretty much Twitter, YouTube, Mixer, as Sightless Combat. That's with a K. So SIGHTLESSKOMBAT, all one word. But yeah, so if you reach me on any of those and you would like to talk to me, privately about projects you want to work on, consultancy opportunities, any of that, any work you'd like to do with me, any questions you have about how Gaming Without Sight works, then I will be happy to answer. Always feel free to come into a stream, leave feedback, comments, suggestions of games you want to see, any of that kind of stuff. And I'm always happy to sort of talk and keep this accessibility dialogue going. It's a great opportunity to be here, if virtually, at MomoCon. It's amazing.
Amazing that this happened.
Really surreal, but it's absolutely amazing. Great. And if I may be Q&A interviewer for 1 second and say, where can people find you? And
thank you. Well, so I am Spy Shadow. I stream on Mixer. It's another platform, a streaming platform, mixer.com, Spy Shadow. And you can also see me on Twitter. It's Real Spy Shadow. I had to put real in front of my name, unfortunately. You can check me out on both Twitter and on Twitch. I will probably be in the stream currently as this is recording as Real Spy Shadow. So if you have any questions right at the second that the stream is happening, you can always ask me there. And
I'm looking forward to seeing what comes of this, how many people are motivated by this to get looking at accessibility in earnest, because once you start looking at it, I think the interest will then sort of kick in.
It's peaked,
and then you'll be like, yep, I want to look at this more. And who knows, we might see up-and-coming game developers here. We might see up-and-coming comic book creators doing all sorts of interesting stuff, up-and-coming video editors and all kinds of things. But I'm really glad that I could actually do this interview, this Q&A panel.
Great.
It's been a brilliant laugh just talking about all of this and getting all this information across.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Combat, so much. Thank you, MomoCon, so much for having this, guys. It's awesome, the fact that you went online.
Thank you very much, Spy Shadow. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. I had a blast, and I learned so much, and I'm hoping to take some of this back to my stream and hopefully my inclusivity and awareness.
Xbox Ambassadors channel as well. You can find me streaming a show called Sightless Stories. From 3 till 5 BST.
And we want to thank you guys for tuning in. We really appreciate the fact that you were listening in. I hope you had a great time at this convention. Hopefully we can all physically be together at the next convention and everything. And very excited for that. Again, if you have any more questions, feel free to have any type of dialogue. Seriously, open it up. And we look forward to sharing and talking with you guys more.
And again, as I say, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to be here as well. It's really good to do my first remote panel like this, my first remote Comic-Con style panel, and really appreciate you all coming along virtually to learn about accessibility from a slightly different perspective to what you might expect, and with a few different angles and takeaway points, hopefully, that you can look at in the very near future onwards. So yeah, thank you very much again to all of you, Spy Shadow, and everyone else who helped organize this. So I will see you all very soon. We will see you all very soon.
Yes, we will.
As well.
All right. Bye, guys.